This is a lecture from Open Tuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
All right, this is the third lecture on books of prime entry. And now, at the end of the month, we're actually going to do our double entries. And the double entries, remember, the real T accounts are in our nominal or general ledger. And watch me carefully how we go about it. We take each of the books of prime entry in turn. So first of all, let's take the sales journal or the sales day book. Now remember, what was recorded in this book was sales on credit. And we know from, where was it, chapter 3 or wherever it was, we know that the double entry for sale on credit is to debit receivables and credit sales. That's what we did before, that's what we're going to do here. Except we've got, what, 5 sales. In practice there could be 5,000. And it'll be a bit silly and a bit unnecessary to say, oh, and 2,100. Debit receivables, credit sales. Edwina, 350. Debits receivables, credit. Mad. Surely the entry for all of them. Debit receivables, credit sales. So instead of doing each one separately, we simply take the total and do one big debit and one big credit. The total is 6,600. And so in the nominal, the general ledger, we'll debit receivables account with 6,600. We'll credit sales. So whether there were 5 sales on credit or 5,000, doesn't matter. Every individual sale on credit was listed in the sales journal or the sales day book. For the double entry, we just take the one big total. Debit receivables, credit sales. What we write against doesn't really matter and isn't your problem in the exam. But I'll write against it SJ. Simply because if ever I need to check that figure, 6,600, you know, what were the individual sales? It's a sales journal I would need to look at. So that's the double entry completed there. What about the next book of prime entry, the purchase journal or purchase day book? Well, these, remember, are all purchases on credit. And when we buy on credit, the double entry debit purchases, credit payables. But again, instead of doing each one separately, we'll do them all in total. In total, 4,400. And so, in the nominal ledger, debit purchases, 4,400, credit payables. And I'll write against it PJ because that's where I got the number from, the purchases journal, payables journal, sorry. Next one. I'll do cash receipts book. Now watch me carefully here. With cash receipts, what's the double entry going to be? With a cash receipt, you debit cash and you credit somewhere. If it was cash sales, debit cash, credit sales. If it's cash from credit customers, debit cash, credit receivables, and so on. And so what we'll do is this. We'll say, well, the total cash received was 12,200, and cash received, we always debit cash. So instead of doing 4 or 4,000 little debits, we'll put one big debit to cash of 12,200. But where's the credit going to go? Well, if you look at the analysis columns, cash receipts, 10,000 of it was capital. So credit capital 10,000. What was the rest? I'm sorry, keep going up and down, but I'll do two at once. 1,200 was cash sales and 1,000 was receivables. So cash sales will credit sales with 1,200. Now we've already got a sales account, credit with 1,200. The other 1,000 was receivables, debit cash, credit receivables 1,000. So it's the first time you've seen this, that if you think about it, the way we've done it, we've one big debit of 12,200 to cash. The double entry, well, there are three little credits, 1,000 to receivables, 1,200 to sales, 10,000 to capital. So in total, the debits equal the credits. But again, so much more efficient just to do the total at the end of the month than to do each individual receipt as it happens. Here, of course, it's vital we don't lose the cash receipts book because, you know, where's the credit for the 12,2? It's three different places. I'll write against it cash receipts book, CRB, 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 CRB. Because again, that's where we'd have to check if I wanted to know where everything had gone. Finally, cash payments. Well, in exactly the same sort of way. Cash payments always will credit cash debit somewhere. Well, the total cash paid was 6,400. We'll credit cash with 6,400. And where are the debits going to go? Well, we'll have to look at the analysis columns. And again, I'll do two at once to save going up and down. But cash payments. 1,600 was cash purchases, debit purchases. 2.5 was motor vehicles, debit motor vehicles. So 1,600 purchases. Oh, where was it? I've got a purchases account. 1,600. I'll write against CBP for cash book payments. Or cash payments book, CPB, sorry. And van was 2,500. Or motor vehicles, sorry. Why else are we spending cash? 300 rent, 900 payables. Credit cash debit rent, credit cash debit payables. So rent 300. Payables, I've already got an account for payables. Where is it? There. Payables 900. And finally, wages 400, drawings 700. Credit cash, we've done that. Debit wages 400, debit drawings 700. And there we are. I've now done the debits credits. Same rules as always. You know, pay wages, credit cash, debit wages. So we've not changed the system. But instead of doing debit, credit, debit, credit, debit, credit, thousands of times a month for each separate transaction. Instead of that, we noted each transaction in one of those original 4 books. And at the end of the month, I took the totals from the books and did the debits, credits in the nominal ledger in total. So much more efficient. You know, rent, for instance. However many, wages, same for all of them, but wages. However many times you pay wages during a month, there's only one entry at the end of each month for the total wages. And so over the year, there's only going to be 12 entries, 12 months. A lot more efficient, a lot better use of the ledger. These days, of course, most companies do the recording on computer. And of course, a computer, when you enter a figure, it can do the debits, credits immediately. But it depends on the software. Most accounting software will effectively keep these 4 books. And so you enter van 2,500, it will make a note in effectively on the computer in a cash payments book. At the end of the month, you sort of press a button and it will put the totals through to the ledger. So we've now completed the double entry. And so let's do one final step here. From now on, we'd carry on exactly as normal. Take the balances and do a trial balance. So let's do it. The balance on receivables. $5,600. The balance on sales. $7,800. The balance on purchases, 6,000. On payables, $3,500. On cash, what is it, 5,800? I think, yeah. Capital's going to take a balance. Motor vehicles, rent, wages, drawings. There's only the one figure. So having taken the balance on every account, let's now do a trial balance. A bit of revision for you. The trial balance, remember, is simply a list of all the balances. And the total of the debits should equal the total of the credits. So nothing new here, say a bit of revision, but from chapter 3, I think. But let's do it. Receivables 5,600, sales 7,800. Purchases 6,000, payables 3,500. Cash 5,800, capital 10,000. Motor vehicles 2,500, rent 300. And finally, wages 400, drawings 700. So having listed all the balances, again, let's see, does the total of the debits equal the total of the credits? And I hope it does. The credits, 7, 10, 21,300. The debits, 8, 11, 16, 20. Oh no. Yes, sorry, I missed one. 6, 14, 19, 22, 26, 33, 8, 14, 19. Phew, I thought I was going to have to do it all over again, but 21,300. Now, I'm not doing any further with the accounts, but having checked they're all balanced, the accountant would then go and close off the accounts, just as we did in chapter 3. But at the same time, would make the adjustments for accruals and prepayments, irrecoverable and doubtful debts, inventory, depreciation. But we've been through all of that. From now on, everything would carry on as normal. Now, there is a bit more to this lecture, and there's going to be one more, so I'm not quite there. But can I repeat what I said before? You will never, ever, ever, not just in this exam, but even in later exams, you won't be asked to write up books of prime entry in full. You won't. But you will be tested in various ways that you understand what they are. It can, some questions might just be effectively definitions, you know, where would this transaction be entered? Would it be entered in? Cash payments, cash receipts, and so on. Or you'll see in some of the later chapters, ways again in which they can test you on that you know what the books are without you having to write them all out. So, you know, I know this is taking a while, but just to try and explain the books in words isn't sort of convincing. I think it's important to see with an example exactly what's happening. Just one thing before I leave this example. There's a nice little check that we can do on ourselves now, which is something that in a later chapter can become a question all on its own. But look at payables. Total payables in the nominal ledger. Where is it? I've lost it. Oh, there it is, at 3,500. And that's the total we owe. And of course, for the statement of financial position, that's all I need. As a current liability, payables, 3,500. But I'd also need to know who it's owed to. Who do I owe that money to? You know, we're going to be making payments. I need to know who's owed that money. And of course, I can easily find out because we were keeping a note. We were keeping a note in the payables ledger, the purchase ledger. It was only a note, but we've a note there of how much we owe everybody. And how much do we owe? If I do a list of the balances, we owe Chris 300, we owe William 1,600, we owe Bertha 1,600. How much do we owe in total? 3,500. So in the nominal ledger, I know the total owing, 3,500. From the payables or purchase ledger, I know who we owe the money to. And of course, the total of that list should be the same as the total in the general ledger. And it does act as a little check, because you see, nobody's perfect. The person who was writing up this, they came to Bertha, there was 1,600. They may have accidentally only written 160 there. And of course, if they'd only written 160 there, the total of the list would be different. But the payables ledger, the nominal ledger, the payables account, would still have 3,500 because we'd just taken the totals from the books. So it does act as a little check that if the total in the payables account doesn't equal the total of the list of balances, somebody's made a mistake somewhere, and we better find out. You know, because if the individual balances are wrong, we'll end up paying the wrong amounts to our suppliers. If the payables account is wrong, we've got the wrong figure on our statement of financial position. So it acts as a nice little check. And similarly, receivables, we think we're owed 5,600. That's the total, and that's all I need for the statement of financial position. But of course, we need to know who are the people who owe us that money so that we can chase them and decide if any are irrecoverable or doubtful. And who does owe us that 5,600? Well, look at the receivables or sales ledger, and there we are, and do a list of the balances. Anne owes us 1,100, Edwina 350, Andrew 700, Tony 1,350, and George 2,1. How much are we owed in total? 0, 0, 1, 2, 5, 12, 15, 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5,600. Is that the same? I honestly can't remember. Yes, it is 5,600. Clearly, this should be the same. If they're not, we would need to find out why. We'll talk more about that in a later chapter. But for practical reasons, again, not only do we need to know the total owing, we do need to know who the individual balances are, who are the people we're chasing for money. Okay, that is more or less it. However, there's going to be yet another lecture, which I think will help. I've been saying, you see, you're not going to be writing up these books in the exam, but you do need to know what they are, and the names are very similar. You know, payables ledger, payables account, payables journal. Even if everything I've done makes perfect sense to you as I've been going through, I'm sure you can see, especially in the middle of an exam, it's so easy to get them all muddled up because the names of all these books are all very similar. And so, what I'll do in the next lecture is, I think it might help you. I'll draw the next page. You've got space. It says a diagram of the complete bookkeeping system. Nothing new, but I will draw a picture just then you've got it in front of you, and that you know where all the books fit together. Anyway, that's the next lecture.